So I'm here in the lovely Norfolk countryside on a little trip out, trying to get to know my brewing neighbours. And we're here with Mike from Wildcraft. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm alright, thank you.
What a glorious place to work.
On a day like this, it doesn't get better, does it?
No, it's absolutely magnificent. Where are we? Where is your brewery if people are looking for
The
it?
brewery is just over my shoulder,
Yes.
over there, but we're in Buxton, near Coltshall. in
Not the
Norwich.
place that makes the water,
Not the place that makes the water. No.
the other Buxton. You've got the first time when I've been out filming at a brewery that I've been sniffed by goats. Is that an occupational hazard here?
Very much so, yeah. Dogs, goats, you'll get sniffed by something, but not by me.
Good. Well,
I hasten to
we'll see
add.
how it goes.
Well,
a few
You
drinks.
never know.
So tell us about Wildcraft. How did it come about? How did you first end up creating this masterpiece?
Wildcraft came about through teaching almost killing me.
Right. Okay. What were you teaching?
Horrible kids. No, I wasn't really. The kids were lovely, actually, just in case they're watching. But
Primary, secondary?
It was secondary school. I ended
subject?
up doing English, maths, and science.
Okay.
GCSE in a behavioural department. And actually, yeah, I mean, like I said, the kids were great. However, the way that teaching went just wasn't for me. And I used to do a lot of home brewing.
Nice.
I wanted to make my own
Yeah.
beer. I wanted to enjoy it. And my local community in Old Cossey, because I don't actually live here, I'm down the road in Old Cossey, kind of got behind me and said, look, this is good beer. Why don't you try and go professional?
Brilliant. And how long did you be homebrewing before you decided to go pro?
It must have been 6-7 years, I think.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And what was how did you get from that stage when you decided to go professional? What was the next step? Was it because obviously there's a lot of research. It's a very different thing from homebrewing to running your own brewery. What was the next stage?
Yeah, and to be fair, we got a lot wrong to start off
Did
with, because we took that homebrewing kind of ethos into things, and it's not right. You're absolutely right. It's a very, very different kettle of fish. But yeah, I mean, first of all, I just started looking at how we could start it up, and actually doors opened really, really quickly as I started looking around, as I started doing things, and it got to a point really where we were left with two things that we didn't have. Very important things, to be fair:
Yeah.
money and a property.
Right.
I think if I'd have kept on brewing in my shed at the end of the garden, health and hygiene might have had a few things to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I met Mark at after a football match. We're both Norwich City season ticket holders,
Nice.
and we met in the Coach and Horses, which is a lovely brew pub in the city, and just started talking about ambition really and what we wanted to do. I mean, the football club weren't showing much ambition at that point, so
having
we had to.
been at the Norwich Watford game at the weekend, I can appreciate that you might want to have a drink afterwards.
I think less said about it at the minute, the better. Yeah. However, Mark and I met through it, and he rang me up about a week after we'd spoken and said how big was the property you needed.
Yeah.
I probably made up a number off the top of my head, if I'm honest, but I went about 900 square foot. And he said, well, funnily enough, that's exactly what my parents have got. Would you like to come and have a look at the old barn they've got?
Wow.
So that's kind of how we ended up here. And then it was just getting the money together to buy all the equipment and do everything else. And there are actually books out there. I didn't even realise this before I started looking at it, but there are books out there of how to start up a brewery.
Right.
We read all of those. We read a lot of the pitfalls, a lot of the other stuff, and we came to a conclusion that you probably needed about 100 grand really to start up a brewery properly. We managed to raise 60 through a combination of crowdfunding and investment.
Wonderful. Where did the investment come from? People you knew? Was it random?
Not at the time. I mean, a couple of them are, a couple of them aren't. But I think people saw the way that the crowdfunding was going, and that got their interest spiked.
Okay.
Because we raised nearly £25,000 through crowdfunding, and that wasn't the giving away equity type.
It was the
pre-order
okay.
and get it if we manage. So yeah, we managed to raise 60 grand in total, and because we are both grafters, we decided we could just do it ourselves. So we did most of the groundworks ourselves. We put the floors in. We put
Fabulous.
a lot of it in. We had a great investor come on board who is an electrician.
Okay.
So obviously he was able to sort us out with that side of things, and also he can put his hand to anything. So the ceilings went in. We had walls built. We had all sorts done by him. So yeah, it was really about a really good community of people around us, which helped us to do it.
And so you got it all done within the 60,000 up and running?
We did,
that?
yeah.
That's fantastic.
But I will tell you something.
Go on.
You need about 100 grand to start a brewery.
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
We found that out pretty quickly. Although we got that stuff done,
Yeah.
we didn't then have much in the way of working capital or anything
No,
else. So it's
understood.
been one of those things where we've just had to plough money back the whole time. And we've never really seen anything out of it so far.
Oh, well, there you go.
We'll get to that point.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So that was how many years ago? How long have you been
That was
running?
5 years ago now.
Okay. And you've got quite a sort of outdoorsy ethos for the brewery, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I used,
Foraging-y?
yeah, I originally, a long time ago, I got myself a horticultural degree
Right.
when I was 19. Never really used it.
Yeah.
However, I did used to enjoy using my knowledge of plants and things like that to go out foraging and find what I could in the undergrowth.
Yes.
So used to do that a lot. It started off making wines with it. Some of them were blooming awful, and then went on to beers, and they've turned out okay, hopefully.
What's changed? Because I came down here a few weeks ago to Beer Fest, first time we met. What's changed from what we see now at the brewery to what the brewery was like at the beginning?
A massive amount.
Right.
We've still got the original brew equipment that we bought.
Yep.
And we bought that as separates off eBay.
Right.
We just found tanks which are the right size and went for it.
Did that work? Fine. Was there much money?
There was a lot of work that had to go into making sure that we then had the right connections, etc., to make everything work
Yeah.
from that. If we did it again, I wouldn't do it that way.
Right.
However, it's got us to where we are now. So,
Yeah.
we've got to be thankful for what we have got.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I think that now if we went even all mechanised, I think if something went wrong, I'd know where it was and how to fix it, because we've had to deal with so much
Yeah.
with that. But yeah, I mean, we had 2 flat bottom fermenters, really old fashioned. And that was all we were brewing on, so we could do a maximum of 1,500 litres every 10 days. We didn't really have to do that much at the time because we weren't that well known.
Yeah.
However, we've now got 5 1,500 litre tanks in there,
Okay. Yeah.
which we're now struggling to rotate enough to get that amount of beer out of. So it's changed quite a lot.
When you first got up and running, how did you sell your beer? Where did you find your customers?
I went out myself. So Mark, my business partner, still works full time. And at the beginning, it was literally me just doing everything. Mark would come home from work, help me finish off, help me tidy up the brewery and clean and everything. But it was, if we wanted to do sales, I had to go out. So I did. I just went out on foot in Norwich, took some samples with me, and
To pubs?
yeah, just to
Bottle shops?
pubs and shops. Just left them there and said, right, if you like it, give me
It
a
was a
call.
ring, and that worked.
It worked.
Did? Wonderful. Wonderful. And what was the early reception to the beer? Obviously positive if people are buying it.
Yeah. Well, our first beer was actually a beer I brewed last week,
Yep.
which is our Christmas beer.
Okay.
This is the first time I've brewed it at this time of year.
Right.
But with all the CO2 shortages and unknowns of being able to get things packaged, it's much better to get it done early this year. And yeah, I took that out. That first brew took us nearly 16 hours, just because we hadn't used the system before. We didn't really know what we were doing. Thankfully now we've cut that down to about 6-7 hours. But yeah, I took that out and people really liked it as our first attempt. So
Wonderful. And seasonal.
yeah.
Seasonal, nice. Do you do a lot of seasonal stuff? Is it a lot of? Are you planning ahead a lot of the time for your autumn and your Halloween beers and stuff?
Yeah,
Any pumpkin stuff?
No,
No.
no, I won't. I just won't do it. You can't get the pumpkin flavour through, right? And they're just.
It's
too-
very
it's
very
too
hard to buy
gimmicky.
actual pumpkins. People tell me they're always using pumpkin puree because it's very hard to buy pumpkins.
Really? Oh.
Someone was saying that saying all the pumpkins go to supermarkets, and someone was saying this year I was talking to, and so you have to use tins.
Oh right, okay. I have used pumpkin in the past. I used it in conjunction with squash as well,
Yeah.
and it didn't impart the flavour I wanted it to.
Right.
So I just don't do it now. And there's loads of people out there doing it. I like
Marvellous.
to do different things. So in terms of our seasonals, it's quite difficult to say when something's actually going to be ready. With the seasons changing as they are,
Yeah.
a lot of our stuff is foraged, as you said. So things coming in and going out. I mean, the blackberries this year have been really, really early.
Right. Yeah. I've noticed that looking around.
Yeah, cherries were almost non-existent this year. They just fell off the trees. So you're just constantly fighting a battle with nature.
I found
Working
that the
out.
quality of blackberries, because I do quite a lot of, that's my only real foraging is eating
Yeah.
blackberries as I
Yeah.
walk around the streets. Go blackberries. But I found the real lack of juicy blackberries. It's quite rare this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I did find a couple of bushes, but they had very few on.
Okay.
So they were probably eaten by me, really.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, you probably had the Norfolk supply of
Yeah.
blackberries. What is the Norfolk craft beer as newcomers to the Norfolk craft beer scene? What is the vibe like amongst different breweries?
Really good amongst most.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of breweries about in Norfolk.
Yeah.
So if you don't get on with people, there's a bit of an
Bad.
issue, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've always wanted to get on with people.
Yeah.
We set this up with a community feel, really. So
Yeah.
that's why we do our events here. That's why we do that. That's to get our customers in. We also invite our pubs and our shops to come along and try things with us, and other breweries. We get on very well with most.
Nice. Who are you particularly friendly with around this sort of place? Who do you get on with well?
Quite a few. I mean, we get on really well with Tyndall's. We got SMP, Duration.
Fabulous.
Just to name a few. Chalk Hill Brewery. Obviously, we started there, and we're looking to do a brew together at some point.
Fabulous. Very
There's
good,
quite a
isn't
few.
it?
So I've left loads out. That's the problem.
That's fine. Yeah, that's the issue with this now. They're going to be watching and they're going to get on an email. What's the future of the brewery here? What are your long-term plans? Are you happy as it is, or is it expansion aims, or?
I'm never going to be happy how it is. We've already managed to buy new kit, so we've got a new brew kit in the field waiting to be installed, and actually we should have any minute now 2 new fermenters, 10-barrel fermenters, so that will double the size of fermenters we've got in there already. So they're arriving at some point today, and yeah, it's now a question of what we do here. So we've got plans to expand on this site, but we're also looking at plans to expand on another site. So it's costing it all up and then working out which way is the best way to go.
In terms of finding property for breweries, was that just word of mouth that you obviously the first one you found through Norwich City, but is it generally sort of word of mouth that you go and to find
and
things?
again it's working with this community of people that we chat with. You know, I mean, all of our grains go off to farms. All of our spent grains, should I say, and all of our spent hops go off to farms. So we want to be in this kind of environment. We don't want to be on a inner city industrial estate. We want to be amongst the birds and the bees and the flowers and everything else. For a start, if I'm getting down in the brewery, I can come out here and actually have some downtime and enjoy it. But it's just lovely to be in amongst all this kind of thing, and it's lovely for people to come and visit us in a place like that. So, I mean, we're looking at farms and looking at that kind of thing.
Fabulous. We're in the early stages of our brewing. We've done a couple of collaborations so far. We've got a few more in the pipeline and stuff off to Lervig next month.
Nice.
Out in Norway. Eventually, the plan is to build a physical brewery, but we're working out the best way to do that. Whether it's because at the minute it's been brewing collaboration beers, that we haven't put out any of our own original sort of recipe things ourselves. And so we were discussing on our podcast we do with James from Verdant the other day whether the best approach is to just go hell for leather to starting your own place, or whether it's to gypsy or cuckoo brew around places. He suggested finding a friendly place with a lot of space and buying a fermenter to go in there and using that in their downtime and stuff like that. What would be your advice if you were in our shoes? Like pressure that now.
That is a lot of pressure, yeah. I mean, some breweries done very, very well out of doing exactly what you're doing. If you look at Duration, for example, that's exactly how they set themselves up. I think doing a cuckoo brew somewhere for a while
is a good approach.
I think it would be a really good approach, because then at least you can get a feel for what people think of your brews.
Yes.
Duration had the advantage of having Bates, who was, world famous anyway, with his brewing credentials. I think to get into the scene, I think you need to be able to put your own beer out, say, do you like it, and then go, right, here we go then.
Yep, fabulous. Okay, that's where we'll work. That's where we're going then. That's decided.
Right.
That's settled. What other advice would you give a starting brewery like ourselves?
Just keep visiting as many as you can and ask them what the pitfalls are. It's one thing we didn't do.
Yes.
So we asked advice,
Yep.
and advice was great. However, we didn't find out all the things that can go wrong and will go wrong.
Right.
So I mean, we lost a lot of brews in the first year.
And what was the reason? What were the pitfalls?
No, there were loads of different things. I mean, temperature was a main one, which, because we had these flat bottom fermenters which didn't have any kind of jacketing or anything else, and because we'd come from a home brewing situation. I mean, in a home brew situation, you want to keep your water as nice and warm as possible to keep the fermentation going.
Yeah.
If you've got that much in a tank, the chemical reaction creates heat,
Yep.
So you want to go the opposite and you want to cool it down. So we lost brews because of that, because of the off flavours and the phenols that was producing. We lost brews because of just not having a good enough cleaning regime, or the cleaning probably was good enough, but the chemicals we were using weren't.
Right. Okay.
So having all those kind of things in place. Water, we were on Anglian water for the first year. We soon swapped and invested in a borehole because they were putting chloramides in the water, which react with the enzymes in the barley and give a plastic chemical flavour.
Right.
No one ever told us those things.
Yeah.
They were things we found out afterwards. And the other thing was, I was constantly putting beer down the drain, and that really does get you down.
Yeah.
And then you speak to another brewer and say, "Oh, this is how much we've lost this year." And they go, "Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to us, but we learned and we did this."
So just accepting
So
that things are
it's
going to go wrong.
accepting that things go wrong. Yeah, we just didn't realise that most people have those things go on.
Yeah. No. Fair enough. Yeah. And overall, what would you have done differently if you were starting again now?
I think we would have waited and got more money behind us so that we could have invested in a better, not necessarily better, but definitely a bigger kit.
Okay. That's what everyone says.
Yeah.
Everyone says
Yeah.
go bigger than you think.
Start bigger than you think. We went for a 5-barrel. We're now heading on to a 10-barrel.
Okay.
But that's because it's within the price ranges that we can afford.
Yeah.
What we should do really is just go for a 20-barrel and half brew for a while.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting stuff. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for having us down here. And what have you got coming up at the brewery? If people are watching and want to try out your brews, what do they do?
Well, you can either come here on a weekend and try a few beers yourselves, or coming up we have our Christmas brews. I can't believe I'm saying this in October, but no, it's not even October, it's September.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, we've got 3 different Christmas brews on the way, and loads of new stuff in can, bottle. We've got loads of stuff coming up.
Wonderful. What's the website? If you want to know more?
Wildcraftbrewery.co.uk.
Easy. Brilliant. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. We're going to go inside and watch Mike do a bit of brewing, and more content soon. Like and subscribe and all that. Thank you. Now go see the goats.